Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show podcast, coming from right here in our quaint little studio. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world: movies, movie news, TV, streaming, all sorts of good stuff. Joining me here today I was about to say in studio, Rob, but you're not in studio. You're in your studio. Writer, director, producer, Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how are you doing today, sir?
Here in the we haven't done this in a long time. I feel like I've been catapulted back in time 3 years.
Yeah, this is like back during the pandemic days that we used to do like this. Just so you guys at home know, Jonathan Voico has the day off today. And since Jonathan is not here, I have to try to manage the whole stream by myself like I used to do. Haven't done this really like this in a while. So it's good to have you guys. Why is it focusing on her face? Don't focus on her face. Focus on my face. And just so you guys, many of you are not sports fans, I know. Today, in my week of Halloween costumes, of course, yesterday I was Peacemaker. Today, I am legendary future Hall of Famer Philadelphia Eagle Jason Kelce, who just so happens to be one of my absolute favorite podcasters in the world right now. Rob, him and his brother, Travis Kelce, have the one of the top podcasts in the world, number one sports podcast in the world, one of the absolute top sports or overall podcasts in the world, called New Heights. And I love Jason Kelce. I really do. So I thought today that I would dress up as Jason. Maybe I should go for the beard look. I don't know.
You look good, man.
It would literally take me 8 years to grow this beard, though, unfortunately. Anyway, guys, good to have you here. We got a whole bunch of stuff that we need to talk about here today. So let's get started with this, shall we? You know, there's a new Quiet Place movie coming. Don't know if you heard about it. A Quiet Place Day One with Lupita Nyong'o, who is like one of the best actresses in the world. I think that kid from the last season of Stranger Things is in there as well. And it was coming and it was approaching, but unfortunately, it looks like we might have to wait a little bit longer for it to get here, as it has been reported that it's been delayed by 3 full months. This comes to us from Coming Soon, who write the following. Per Boris Kitt of The Hollywood Reporter, Paramount Pictures has pushed A Quiet Place prequel from March 8th, 2024 to June 28th, 2024. A Quiet Place Day One serves as a prequel / spin-off to A Quiet Place, the post-apocalyptic horror film series co-created by John Krasinski. Michael Sarnowski is writing and directing Day One based on a story treatment by John Krasinski, who of course is also producing the film. Rob, we live in a time right now where everything's getting delayed. I mean, before it was because of a pandemic, then writer's strike, now actor's strike. It is possible that maybe this delay has more to do with, I don't know, maybe they may need more time in post. I'm thinking it's the fact that they can't have John Krasinski as the creator and producer, or Lupita Nyong'o or whatever out there promoting the film. But, they showed us a preview for this, Rob, at CinemaCon in April. We loved what we saw.
It looked incredible.
It looks so good. It's only 3 months, but still I'm kind of bummed about this. What do you think about the delay? What do you think caused the delay? And where's your anticipation level for this movie right now?
Well, I mean, the obvious answer would be the writers or the actors, continuing actors strike after the writers settled. But also, I think maybe they're taking this opportunity too to refine the film a little bit more. I mean, since you have the opportunity, why not take the time? We've talked about effects pipelines being backed up. And I think that it's probably the actor strike, but I think that they might take this opportunity to tighten up the film even more, although it might be done.
Where right now would you say is your anticipation level for this? Like, is a prequel to A Quiet Place? I mean, we were kind of surprised when they made a sequel. Now they're doing a prequel. We got a part 3 coming. Is this a movie they should have made? Where's your anticipation level right now?
Oh, dude, I think so far what we've seen from this franchise is terrific. I like that they're exploring the world, because this does have, we always talk about lore, but I've been fascinated by how this happened. Give me outbreak stories. I love those day one outbreak stories. I mean, the first episode of The Last of Us. How great was that? I mean, I love seeing an alien invasion like this in broad daylight. Bring it on.
How do you think people are going to respond to it? Do you think people are going to run out and see this thing?
Yeah, I think people love this franchise. Because it's always, well, it's not like it has 10 movies, but so far it's delivered. And, it's what I love about this franchise, like we talked about, Emily Blunt walking down a staircase can become
still one of the creepiest scenes I've ever seen.
And one nail. I mean, this doesn't require, monstrous special effects, even though the effects in these movies are quite good. But it's all character-based, situational terror, suspense. That's I think the best kind. And if they can, first of all, I love Lupita Nyong'o in anything. I'll just watch her because she's one of those beautiful women in the world. I mean, I don't want to see poor Lupita get devastated, but I'm gonna watch her fight aliens. I'll tell you that.
All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Many of you guys remember that a report came out a while ago that in the ever-increasing and growing number of Marvel shows that they're trying to make for Disney+, Wonder Man with Yahya Abdul-Mateen was rumored going to be taking over the role as Wonder Man. Now, of course, Disney never officially made that announcement, but a lot of pretty reliable sources came out and claimed that that was happening. But we've been hearing some whispers lately that Wonder Man might be one of the projects that has been suffering the axe and is now gone. And apparently that's being backed up by a new book coming out as well, saying that the Wonder Man show has been canceled. This comes from the folks at Screen Geek who write the following. While speaking on the Watch podcast, MCU, The Reign of Marvel Studios co-author Joanna Robinson was discussing the situation with Daredevil Born Again and explained how it ties in with another upcoming Marvel series in Wonder Man. Sadly, Robinson notes, Wonder Man might not have the opportunity to head any further into production like Born Again. She said, even after we heard about the Daredevil situation, I've also heard again that they are trashing the Wonder Man project. Like there is a lot of stuff that is going into the can. And once again, that comes to us from Screen Geek. And this is pretty consistent, actually, with a lot of stuff we've been hearing coming out of Marvel. You guys remember when Bob Iger took over Disney again, one of the comments he made about Marvel was they were making too much product. It was diluting the product of Marvel, and that they would be reining it in a little bit. Now, of course, they trashed everything they've got going on with Daredevil, but they're going to continue making that. They're just going back to the drawing board, bringing in new writers, all that kind of stuff. But Rob, you and I think both assumed and believed that at some point, because there was a hell of a lot of Disney plus Marvel shows on the roadmap, like a hell of a lot of them. I think we both assumed some of them would be getting the axe. Is Wonder Man one of the ones that makes sense to put to the axe? Is this one you were really hoping that would come through? Are you surprised by this? What are your thoughts?
Well, Wonder Man in the comics, in the original version of Wonder Man, Simon Williams was created. Well, Wonder Man was created by Baron Zemo, and Baron Zemo used scientific super science to turn him into a superhero. And he originally, I mean, it was a villain. He drew the Avengers in against the Masters of Evil. And he was one of those classic characters that began as a villain that turned into a hero. And while I like that journey, he's had a convoluted history. And I'm sure they were going to change him from the comics, even though they probably shouldn't, because we've seen Baron Zemo in the series, in Falcon and Winter Soldier. So I think it could have worked, but the character, I think, isn't necessarily a marquee. Like his experience isn't marquee enough. It's not different enough. It's just another variation on how Captain America was created in a way. So what does he bring to the MCU?
Right.
Although he was a great Avenger.
They haven't
really the Avengers, John.
Have you noticed anything in the MCU? up until this point, because I haven't, but have you noticed any Easter eggs or any name drops or anything in any dialogue that even remotely hinted that they were setting up a Wonder Man, or was this going to kind of be a cold intro?
Well, I think it was going to be a cold intro, but in the comics, Wonder Man Williams Industries was like a rival of Stark Industries.
Right, yeah.
And I would have thought that they might have tied this into Armor Wars. Like they might have jettisoned the series, but we might see the character. I could totally see the character showing up in Armor Wars. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
That would have been a
But
nice introduction point for him, actually, if they were going to move ahead with it.
I think that's what they might. I mean, they might have shifted their plans to, instead of introducing him as in his own series, they introduce him in Armor Wars and then spin it off later. Maybe if he's popular, because like that's what they did with Black Panther, you know, and in Civil War, T'Challa was such an impressive, and Chad Boseman's portrayal was so impressive. We couldn't wait to see him again.
Of course,
and we've talked a lot about how. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, but Black Panther's a little bit of a different situation. Like Black Panther was like I think that was one of Kevin Feige's priorities, was getting Black Panther into the earth. I mean, a lot of people speculate, I don't know that there's any truth to it, but that maybe Black Panther T'Challa was being set up to be maybe being one of the new leaders of the Avengers post Endgame. But then, of course, the tragic passing of the lead actor. But Wonder Man, you know, not as well known, not as popular as a character. Maybe they just looked at him as being one of the more expendable characters that they could cut out.
Yeah, and he's, to be honest, he's kind of goofy. Like,
it depends on the version they go with, right?
Yeah, it depends on how his background. He's had a lot of this is some people are going to get mad at me, but there's a character in the Justice League called Snapper Carr, and Snapper Carr was like a normal dude. And even though Wonder Man was not, he was imbued with powers, he always kind of struck me as the normal dude in the Avengers. If that makes any sense. He was, to me, the Snapper Carr of the Avengers, even though that isn't the right thing to say, but I kind of felt that way.
All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, Shawn Levy has been on quite a roll the last number of years. First of all, he directed one of the most underrated films out there, Real Steel, with Hugh Jackman, which I thought was absolutely wonderful. He then did the Adam Project. I mean, he's done a lot of stuff, including working with Stranger Things. He recently has been working a lot with Ryan Reynolds, obviously. He did the Adam Project. He's directing Deadpool 3, but he's also directing a Star Wars movie that they announced, that Shawn Levy was going to be stepping up, and he's doing a Star Wars movie. Would that movie actually happen? Which is a fair question for us to ask about any announced Star Wars movie, because they cancel a lot of movies that they announce and then mysteriously just kind of disappear. But more importantly, if he was to do a Star Wars movie, what kind of Star Wars movie would it be? And he's just given us a little bit of an update. This comes from the folks over at Star Wars Newsnet, who said the following. And this is quoting Shawn Levy saying, "When Kathy Kennedy brought me on board to make a Star Wars movie, her central mandate to me was, I want a Shawn Levy movie. I want a story and a tone that reflects you and your tastes and what you bring to your movies with a Star Wars story. So," he says, "I have felt extremely empowered. We are in the early days, unfortunately, because of the development process was abruptly paused due to the writer's strike, but I feel very empowered to trust my instincts in the development of this story and this movie." All right. Now, Shawn, obviously, again, he's got Deadpool 3 that they're still trying to work on and get wrapped up and put out there. He's got a couple of other projects as well, but the Star Wars thing seems to be high on his priority list. Rob, I'm going to tell you this. To me, when you're coming into an existing franchise, what I don't want to hear is the head of the studio saying to the director, I just want you to make whatever kind of movie you want to make. I just want you to just make one of your movies. Just go. Normally, I don't want to hear that, because that can lead to what we had with the Star Wars sequels, which was a completely unplanned, uncharted, going all over the place, which ultimately ended in a big mess with The Rise of Skywalker, or something like what happened with the DCEU, where a lot of the different movies just never fit in tone. Like with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like or dislikes a lot of the movies, even though they made a bunch of wildly different movies, they all had the same tone, right? And I normally wouldn't want to hear a director being told, oh, just run out there and make whatever kind of movie you want to make. But I'm going to make an exception here for that. And I'll tell you why. Because this Star Wars movie is clearly not like Star Wars Episode 11 or Star Wars Episode 12. This is going to be more likened unto a Rogue One, where it's like, this is a new story set somewhere else in the galaxy with new characters. And as such, I think that gives Shawn Levy a lot more flexibility to play with what kind of movie he wants to put on the screen and not have to worry if it's fitting in with the tone of Episode 7 or fitting in the tone with Episode 8. It's really going to be its own thing in a very vast galaxy. And Rob, I've been saying for a long time that one of the things I think Star Wars needs to do is expand the galaxy. This is a big universe. You don't only have to stick with the story of the Skywalkers and the auxiliary characters that have been connected to the Skywalkers going out there. So, you know what? At first, I didn't like hearing this, but the more I think about it, I'm kind of down with it. What do you think about Kathleen Kennedy saying to a Shawn Levy saying, hey, go make your kind of movie, make what you want? Do you think he's going to be a good fit for the Star Wars universe? What are you thinking?
Well, I think, that the thing about Shawn Levy, when you say go make a Shawn Levy movie, there's a lot of heart in his films. Even though like you brought up Real Steel or The Atom Project or Free Guy.
I love Free Guy.
He takes these big, giant ideas, science fiction, fantasy ideas, and he grounds them in humanity. And Star Wars has always done that. And I feel that you go back to the original Star Wars, I've always said that Luke and Han are a farmer and a truck driver. They're us.
Right.
We know those guys. We don't really know Jedi, and we don't know Grand Moff Tarkin, but we know Luke and we know Han. And I think that Shawn, as people, like we recognize ourselves in them, we recognize people we know in them. And I think if Shawn Levy were to do a Star Wars movie, he would bring back that desperately needed humanity. And I don't mean that you can't have aliens, but the human heart that was at the core of Star Wars that I think gets lost, especially lately. In all of the Star Wars of it all, where's the humanity? Where are the people? Which is funny to say about aliens in a galaxy a long time ago, far, far away. But I think that's what she means when she says, I want a Shawn Levy movie.
Do you think that he's going to be a good fit for that? Do you think he's going to be able to deliver that? Because we've seen that in some of his other films, but we're talking about a very specific universe and with a very, let's say, finicky fan base. Do you think he's going to fit in well there?
100%. Because, great filmmakers they adjust. They can do work in different genres. And it's really all about the characters and the story. And I think that I think Shawn Levy is going to probably be a tremendous fit for the Star Wars universe based on his previous track record. I mean, because if you look at the dynamic, especially of the original trilogy, that's Shawn Levy's wheelhouse.
All right, guys, with that down, we still need to talk about things like Mission Impossible has just been delayed like almost a full year. The number of streaming subscribers who are turning into churners has rapidly increased, and apparently Disney has absolutely no faith in the Marvels because they've set the review embargo date to be lifted the day before the movie comes out. We're going to talk about all that, but before we do, we're going to take a quick second to thank a couple of sponsors of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at MasterClass and the most comfortable shoes I've ever worn, Vessi. We want to take a moment and thank the sponsor of this video, MasterClass. Guys, as a small business owner, I am finding myself having to be in negotiations all the time, whether it's with new contractors, vendors, or even agencies that represent our company. Now, I don't like to go into these negotiations unarmed, so I found the perfect class on MasterClass, The Art of Negotiation by Chris Voss, a real-life former FBI lead hostage negotiator. Taking this class on MasterClass made me feel a lot more equipped and confident going into all these various negotiations I have to do on a regular basis. With MasterClass, you can learn from the best to become your best anytime, anywhere, and at your own pace. An annual membership starts at just $10 a month, and you get unlimited access to every instructor, thousands of online lessons, exclusive content, insight, and much more. There are over 180 classes to pick from, everything from filmmaking with Martin Scorsese all the way to cooking with the great Gordon Ramsay. In MasterClass, you will find practical lessons that you can apply to your life and work. So guys, get unlimited access to every class, and right now, as a John Campea Show listener, you can get 15% off when you go to masterclass.com/Campea. That's masterclass.com/Campea for 15% off an annual membership. masterclass.com/Campea. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Vessi. Now, you guys know I'm not exactly the most fashion-conscious guy in the world, but I love a great pair of shoes that are comfortable and I can wear almost anywhere. And growing up in Canadian winters when my feet got wet a lot, waterproof would be nice too. Enter Vessi. They make the claim that they're not just fashionable and super comfortable, they're also waterproof. Now, you guys remember, when I got my first pair of Vessis, I put them to the ultimate waterproof test. I actually stuck my foot in my pool, my feet stayed dry, and the shoes stayed dry. Incredible. And they're the most comfortable pair of shoes I ever owned. Well, that made me want another pair. So I got another pair of Vessis that look great and just equal that world-class comfort that I got from that first pair of shoes. They are absolutely my favorite shoes that I've ever owned. Imagine your favorite sneaker style supercharged with waterproof technology and unmatched comfort. No matter how you like to stay active, Vessi has the shoes for you. Trail-ready high tops, effortless slip-ons, and classic court shoes, all with a waterproof twist. They are just as comfortable and stylish as your favorite sneakers, but even more versatile. So guys, if you're anything like me and you want the most comfortable pair of shoes that look great, that you can take out hiking, wear to work, go to the gym, or walk through the water and snow, go to vessi.com/Campea and get yourself a pair today. Go to vessi.com/Campea and get 15% off your order using the code Campea. And thank you to our friends at MasterClass and Vessi for sponsoring this episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Mission Impossible 7 Dead Reckoning Part 1 came out, of course, last year. I thought the movie was really good. Was it the best of the Mission Impossible movies so far? No, not the best, but I had a really good time with it. And despite the fact that there were some people who thought it was going to be a billion-dollar film, despite the fact that no Mission Impossible film's ever been a billion-dollar film, it's fair to say that the movie kind of underperformed a little, coming in the mid $500 million range, right? A lot of people thought more was going to come from that, which turns all eyes now to Mission Impossible 8, or also known as Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2. Will more people get out to see it? Will it be able to carry on some momentum? Will it be able to build up the box office? All that kind of stuff. Where's the story going to go? Well, apparently, we're going to have to wait a little bit longer. Well, scratch that, a lot longer for Mission Impossible 8 because it's being reported that it's been pushed almost a full year. This comes to us from the folks over at The Hollywood Reporter who say the following. Tom Cruise's next Mission Impossible movie is departing the 2024 box office calendar. The 8th installment in the action spy franchise appears to be dropping the second half of its previous title, Dead Reckoning Part 2, with a new title expected to be announced later at a later date. Paramount and Skydance have pushed back the film back to May 23rd, 2025, off of its previous date of June 28th, 2024. The feature shut down production to allow for the movie stars and the cast to promote Dead Reckoning Part 1. Then the SAG actor strike hit it in mid-July. And again, that comes to us from the Hollywood Reporter. So, look, I think a lot of us were kind of expecting that there might be a delay to Mission Impossible. I'm just going to call it Mission Impossible 8 for now. Due to the actor strike, they haven't been able to go back to work. They have no idea when they'll be able to go back to work. Even if the actor strike were to end tomorrow, everybody's schedules have been all thrown into chaos now. So I get it. I was kind of hoping, though, that it wouldn't be pushed back that far. Like now we're literally waiting till around mid-2025. And they're going to lose some of the momentum they had. It's unfortunate. Rob, I'll tell you one of the interesting things, though, that came out of that report is the fact that they're saying they might give it a new title, which I love, but I don't know how you give it a new... Look, I'll be honest with you. I thought Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 was not a great title. I didn't think that was a great title for the film. Not that the title makes the movie any better or any worse, but I didn't like the title. So I love the idea of trying to change the title. But how do you change the title when you just called the first one Dead Reckoning Part 1? If you just call it like Mission Impossible Big Boom, like a lot of people are going to ask, where's Part 2? Anyway, what do you think about them delaying this movie? Where did Part 1 land for you on your overall scale of how much you liked it compared to the other Mission Impossibles? And what do you think about this claiming that they might actually change titles? What do you think about this?
Well, first of all, I've loved Chris McQuarrie's previous Mission Impossible movies. I loved Rogue Nation and I really loved Fallout. So I had a lot of expectations for this. And when I was watching it, I really enjoyed it. The action scenes were great. It was beautifully photographed. I was having a lot of fun. But when it was over and I started to think about the plot, it kind of fell apart for me. And then I went and saw it again and I was like, this makes not a lick of sense. But I didn't care because the action was so great. But when you're making a two-parter, when I think about maybe the greatest two-part movie ever made besides Godfather 1 and Godfather 2, which wasn't intended to be a two-parter at first, was Infinity War and Endgame. And
right.
those movies worked so well together. And when you get to the end of Dead Reckoning, what's supposed to happen? Like, it seemed like, okay, the movie ended, but there's this AI out there that really didn't do much. I mean, if an AI is supposed to be villainous, it threw a great party in that movie. I mean, I'm like, okay, so this AI is running rampant. What's so bad about it out there? Like, what's it done that's so threatening? And I think that, and of course, Esai Morales was great, and he fell into a cart, and he's still alive. But I'm like, where's the thrust of the story going to go? And I thought that was odd. So I can understand why they might change the movie, but then are they going to pull a Lucas when Lucas changed the opening crawl of Star Wars and made it Episode 4 A New Hope, so it's no longer going to be called Dead Reckoning Part 1? Because if there's never a Part 2, how does that work?
Yeah, I'm not really clear. I'll tell you what, though. Well, I did walk out scratching my head a little bit about, sorry, some of the hair in this is getting in my mouth. Well, I did walk out thinking that some of the AI storylines felt unraveled. Like, wait a minute, the AI can do this. How did this not happen? Or how did this not work? They also took some big swings. Like, one of the things that I like about the Mission Impossible franchise is they're often not afraid to like take out some of their characters. And,
totally.
They killed a key significant character of the last number of Mission Impossible films in it that I think caught a lot of people by surprise. I know I gasped when she died in the film. I'm like, wow. So like they try to raise the stakes. The action was fantastic. Like that train sequence, Rob, at the end of the film, that entire sequence, I'm really surprised they never really showed any of it in much of the marketing. But that train sequence, like I thought topped the motorcycle stunt. And really they just showed us a ton of that. Even if the story with the AI thing is a little weird and a little still very much connected to Hunt for Red October for some reason, I'm still really looking forward to the next one, whatever the title will be. So,
dude, me too. Because look, before I saw Dead Reckoning, I watched all the rest of the franchise, and you forget like Mission Impossible 2 is kind of a romance. It's about Tom Cruise trying to save Tandy Newton, from the bad guys, and then Mission Impossible 3, he's like he's training people in the field and he's getting married. I'm like, that's kind of weird, but it still works. And then 4, 5, and 6 seem very much more along the line of what they wanted that franchise to be. So all of them have great joy to be had. Even 2, which people seem to not like much. I'm like, this is a John Woo movie. I love it.
All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? A lot of people, I'm going to say pretty much all of you guys probably have some form of a major streaming service, right? Whether it's Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, Peacock, Paramount, Max, whatever, you name it. Now, there's this thing called churn, right? And most of you know what it is, but for those of you who don't, the term churn kind of basically refers to somebody who subscribes to one of the streaming services to watch something specifically, and then they unsubscribe until another show comes around on it that they're interested in, and then they'll resubscribe. Obviously, what the major subscribers want, or what the major streamers want, is for streamers just to subscribe and stay subscribed. But according to a new report, more and more people are becoming churners. This comes to us from the outlet Next TV that write the following. 1/3 of premium SVOD users are quote unquote serial churners, users who actively manage their video entertainment services, frequently signing up for and then quitting subscription streaming platforms, according to new data published by Antenna. The research company said that the quasi-loyal cohort has been steadily expanding since 2019, when its whimsical rank stood at only 10% of users for 10 identified premium brands: Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, Apple TV Plus, Paramount Plus, Peacock, Showtime, and Stars. So, back in 2019, they said about 10% of the subscribers to those major streaming platforms were churners. 2019, 10%. That number, according to this report, has gone up a staggering amount. Take a look at this. So the red bar is the churners. In 2019, 10% of major streamers subscribers churned. In 2020, that went up by 50% to 15% of streaming subscribers were churners. In 2021, it went up again substantially to 23%. In 2022, it went up to 29%. And Rob, year-to-date 2023, they're saying 33%, 1/3 of all streaming subscribers do what's called churning. Rob, from 2019 to 2023, that represents over triple the amount of people who used to churn now churn. Triple. And you got to wonder, at that rate, what is the churn rate going to be in 2025 and 2026? Are we going to be seeing in 2024 and 2025 that the people who churn the streaming networks is going to represent like half of all streamers? And then what does that also tell us about what people are looking for in their major streaming platforms? Now, I'm a little bit different. My number one criteria for what I look for in a streaming platform is library. Like, that's one of the reasons why I love Disney Plus, even though they frustrate me a lot. But one of the reasons I stay subscribed to Disney Plus is because of the library. I love being able to go in and watch any Pixar film I want at any time. Any Marvel film, any Star Wars film, the Disney classics, all that kind of stuff. That's one of the reasons why I stay subscribed to Netflix. Yeah, they crank out a lot of new stuff, but they have an incredible library, not only of their own stuff, but a huge collection of other content as well on there, always there all the time. But Rob, I think this churn rate they're talking about is pointing to us that there are a lot of users who are looking for new. What's new right now? And I will subscribe when it's something new is there, and then I'll leave until something interesting comes back along. Rob, are you surprised to see this more than tripling number of churners in just the last couple of years? Do you think that's going to continue? And what do you think this number tells us about the current state of streaming and those who subscribe to these streaming services?
Well, I think what's really interesting is you brought up the idea of library catalog. To me, that is the biggest draw. And like with Disney Plus, it has a very finite amount of things. I mean, yes, I love Star Wars and yes, I love Marvel, but I've seen those movies a lot. And I've seen most of the Disney library growing up throughout my life. What I want to see is something I haven't seen. And I think a lot of people feel that way. I mean, Apple Plus, Disney, Paramount Plus, Peacock, they don't have the depth of the library that, say, Netflix does.
Right.
And Netflix is casting a wide net internationally. There's all kinds of great documentaries. There's all kinds of international shows I've never seen before. And that's what I'm looking for. And I think people realize, okay, everything I've seen, I've watched on whatever streaming service, so they can get rid of them. And I think that churn is going to be a big part moving forward. And to me, John, I hate to say it, but Netflix is the one streaming service that I'm always finding some nugget that I've never come across before because they drop so much stuff. I'm like, "Oh, I just watched this interesting documentary called The Blue Zones about people who live longest and where on earth do they live longest." I wouldn't have found that, but Elizabeth's like, "We should watch this." I'm like, "Okay." And then got sucked in and watched all these episodes, and I wouldn't have found it otherwise. But I think that's going to be the future moving forward, is churn is just gonna be built into as much as they're gonna hate to hear that, the streamers are gonna rely on that. They wanted that revenue stream to be even every month and grow, and now they
Right.
found out that that's just not the case. People are gonna leave and they're gonna come back.
How do you think this will affect? Because the first thought that comes to my mind is if I'm an executive at one of the major streamers, if that churn rate grows to say 50%, which just a couple of years, again, in 2019, it was 10. If it grows to 50%, I got to imagine if you're a streaming executive, you're looking at, well, we have to then reprioritize our pipeline maybe with how much original content that we create, which Rob creates a problem because you and I have talked about this before, is that the economic model of these streaming services kind of limits them for how much new content they are constantly creating and making. But if their customers are going to be in a sense of churn, Apple might actually be the best example of what might be the best model moving forward because Apple doesn't create a lot of stuff, right? Apple doesn't create a lot of stuff, but what they do create is they create a limited number of new shows and stuff like that. But it feels like when they create a new show, it feels like there's a 90% chance it's going to be awesome. So
Yes.
I've subscribed to Apple TV Plus, and even though I've gone some stretches without watching something on it, I've never really canceled my Apple TV Plus because I always know, like, whether it's going to be the next Shrinking or the next Severance or the next Morning Show or the next, I mean, Rob, they're loaded with really good stuff. So I wonder if there's going to be a balance somewhere there between the quantity play that Netflix does, which works in some ways, or the Apple limited but high quality, or something like, a Disney Plus or, because Disney Plus, for every one premium thing they release, like a new Marvel or Star Wars show, they release a lot of lower tier things that fly under most people's radars. Where do you think that magic spot is going to be? More the Netflix model, more the Apple TV Plus model? If you're an executive, which way do you go?
Well, here's the thing, John. You brought up Apple Plus. They're $6.99 a month.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a big difference between seeing a $6.99 a month, somebody's taking that out of your checking account as opposed to $20. And if you have 3 or 4 streamers that are charging you 15 to $20, it's going to be noticeable. But Apple Plus, $7, that's a drop in the bucket. That's 2 big coffees at Starbucks. And I know you're talking the difference between, say, less than $10 or less than $20, but that's going to be a big consideration for people, especially with inflation going up. And I think it really comes down to people are going to start asking themselves, what is the best value for my money?
Yeah.
And like you said, whenever Apple puts something out, even the shows that I haven't loved that I wanted to love, like Invasion's beautifully made. Like, if there is a house style to Apple shows, and they look great. I mean, they don't spare any expense.
No.
So, I mean, while we haven't had The Sopranos yet of Apple Plus, maybe, their shows are HBO quality, and that's something worth paying for, and they're only charging $6.99. And I think it's really gonna come down to look what happened with Suits on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
There's a show, I think the streamers are gonna look back, like, they just announced, John, that Leave It to Beaver is gonna get released on physical media.
Yeah, I heard that.
I could see a streamer picking up Leave It to Beaver, and it becomes kind of a hit retro watch for people, because kids today didn't grow up seeing it. It's such a innocent show of a different time. I could see a 50, 60, 70-year-old TV show suddenly becoming all the rage. People making Leave It to Beaver TikTok videos. So I think there's gonna have to be a change because nobody can afford to make brand new programming.
Hmm.
They just can't. So how are streamers gonna compete now? And the Suits success shows you don't have to only have new things. You can bring back old things, and if they're appealing, people will watch. And having a show like Suits is a lot less than making another 10 episodes of something at $10 million an episode.
Well, I mean, a lot of people still forget that even with all the new stuff Netflix makes, the majority of their views is aggregate content. Like the majority of their views comes from shows they never made, whether it's stuff like Suits or older TV shows or it's acquired stuff. And like that, like Peacock, the thing I watch most on Peacock is still Parks and Rec and The Office, Seinfeld, Friends, shows like that make up a big thing. And maybe that could play into it moving forward. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this, shall we? November 10th, which is really November 9th, The Marvels comes out in theaters, the newest MCU film. And listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I liked Captain Marvel. I know it's the cool thing to say, oh, I did like Captain Marvel. Screw that. It was a good little movie. It wasn't top tier MCU by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a fine, entertaining little film. I love Ms. Marvel. Ms. Marvel, I think, is the second best thing that they've had on Disney Plus. And so I love her. I love Kamala Khan. I want to see this character more. And, so I'm looking forward to it. Do I think this is going to be a Marvel masterpiece? No, I do not. But I've been looking forward to it. Rob, I've had optimism. Well, that optimism, my friends, is gone. Because Marvel and Disney have just announced to the world that they have no belief in this movie, no faith in this movie whatsoever, because apparently we've now found out when the review embargo for the movie has been lifted, and it's the day before the movie comes out. The information going around, for instance, this is one of the posts online, that embargo dates for the upcoming The Marvels have just been revealed. Social media embargo lifts November 7th at 9 p.m., and the review embargo lifts November 8th. Remember, the movie, it says the release date is November 10th, but that's really Thursday, November 9th is when it comes out. So the review embargo lifts on November 8th, the day before the movie comes out. Now, in some recent years, Marvel's had a couple of films where they had a later than normal review embargo. Doctor Strange, Spider-Man No Way Home. There were some big surprises they wanted to hide, but even then, those embargoes came 3 or more days before the movie came out. So you can't use the excuse, oh, they're trying to hide a surprise. You can't use that excuse. Because when they were trying to hide a surprise, even those movies had earlier embargo dates. And Rob, this is the thing that really makes it stand out a lot to me. We are currently in an actor strike, which means none of the actors can be out there promoting the film. And you're seeing the effects that's had on a lot of movies that have been coming out during this strike. When these movies have not been able to have the actors go out and promote the movie, it's had an impact. And I'm sure it's going to have an impact on the Marvels. But you would think, with the fact that they can't have Brie Larson and they can't have they can't have Samuel L. Jackson, they can't have any of the other cast out there promoting the movie, you would think that would make it even more imperative that they get some positive buzz out there, get people talking about this movie, because they can't have the cast out there on the late night shows promoting it. So you would think that if they had any belief in this film, that they would be having social media embargoes a week before the movie comes out. You would think that they would be having full review embargoes 4 or 5 days. You would think they would want every page of coverage they could get on every outlet, blog, podcast, YouTube channel, you name it, that they would be desperate to get that attention. And Rob, under those circumstances, it stands out so much even more to me that they're saying, nope, you can tweet about it 48 hours before the movie comes out, and you can't drop your reviews until the day before the movie comes out. Look, is it possible that this movie might be great, and it's just some weird thing that they got going on there. They have some reason to release the review embargo that late in the game. It's possible. I'm not saying it's not possible. It is possible that there's a perfectly logical explanation. But as an outsider looking in, Rob, this screams to me. This is Disney waving a big flag that says, we don't believe in this movie. And like I always say, Rob, to the studios, if you don't believe in your movie, why should I believe in it? I'm still going to go see this movie opening day. I like the first Captain Marvel. I love Ms. Marvel. We'll see how this goes. I'm still going to be there opening day. But Rob, I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you that this has really hit my expectation level for this film, because now my expectation levels has dropped a lot. I don't know. You hear about this. What's your take on it? Do you believe, like I do, that this is them showing no faith? Do you think there could be an alternate reason for this? Where's your excitement level for this movie right now? How do you see it?
John, I enjoyed the first Captain Marvel. It wasn't certainly an A-list Marvel movie, but I thought it was a serviceable science fiction superhero movie, and I enjoyed it. I didn't dislike it. There's nothing about this movie, nothing in the trailers that made me want to see this film. I still don't know what it's about. There's a woman, an antagonist who's, attacking planets, whatever. To me, I'm like, what does this have to do with the larger Marvel universe? How is this? You've got three characters that one we met in WandaVision, one we met in Miss Marvel, and now we've got Captain Marvel. Well, we met her younger self in Captain Marvel. But okay, you put these characters together. How do they relate back to the other Marvel, the bigger Marvel universe? I have no idea. I have no reason to go see this movie as a Marvel fan. You've brought these characters back, but you haven't. So they're swapping their powers. But I think that the movie has an even bigger problem. Nia DaCosta, who directed this, directed a really small, actually a pretty good little independent movie, and then directed the Candyman update, and then was given this $200 million franchise entry. When had she ever shown that she could command this kind of a film and make it what they need? I mean, when they were doing Thor, they hired Kenneth Branagh, who began his film career directing Shakespeare movies, Henry V, Hamlet. He made thrillers. He made Cinderella. I mean, he had a command of cinematic technique and language, bringing these fantastical properties to the screen. And they're hiring all of these directors that don't have that kind of experience to make this movie. And I just don't understand it. And then how did they not know as they moved along that they had a film that they clearly didn't believe in? And like you just pointed out, if they don't care about it, why should I?
I will say this though, Rob, like when you're statement about you got Nia DaCosta coming in, what had James Gunn done before he did Guardians that showed he could, or even more importantly, the Russo brothers who made You, Me, and Dupree? Like, what had they done to show that they could handle a massive tentpole blockbuster? I mean, Kevin Feige's taken a lot of risks with because Feige's philosophy is a good storyteller is a good storyteller, and I don't know that DaCosta is any different from what the Russo brothers were or what James Gunn was.
Well, here's the thing. Like, you love Slither.
Oh, love Slither.
Right?
Love it.
So I think Slither is a great film. Now, in terms of scale, I understand that it's hard to look at Slither, which was made for $3 million, and then say, let's put this person in charge. But what Kevin Feige saw in that was a total sci-fi fantasy thriller that combined humor and horror together in a very deft way. Nia DaCosta's Candyman, which I thought was pretty interesting. I have it. I bought the 4K disc.
Yeah, I didn't love it, but I liked it.
Yeah, but I don't think it shows the same kind of chops to make Captain Marvel that, say, Slither showed to make Guardians of the Galaxy. And I think that there's certain leaps. But you might be right. Maybe Kevin Feige saw something, but clearly it wasn't working. It didn't work. It never worked. The trailers for this movie, you could see from the very first one to the very last one, they're just not engaging. And I don't even know why they chose to tell this story.
It's hard to say because like you and I have gone on a lot about the ineffectiveness of the market. I think they put out that one trailer that you and I both liked quite a bit.
Yeah.
But their marketing campaign over that, you and I both know that it's not the director of the movie or the writers of the movie who make the trailers. That's a third-party marketing company, comes in and makes the trailers. Yeah. Sometimes they make good trailers, sometimes they don't. I mean, what I'm hoping for here is a Coco situation. You know, I honestly didn't think Coco looked all that good. I didn't think Up looked all that good. And I ended up like completely passionately am in love with both of those. You know what's interesting, Rob? I don't know if you saw it, but yesterday a new international trailer for...
I did.
Did you see it? I'll tell you what, they showed something that I thought they should have put in the first, because one of the best things about the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now to me is Kamala Khan and her family. And when they showed that scene in the trailer where, first of all, she's sitting there, the mom and dad are just sitting there talking to Captain Marvel, and they're completely unimpressed. Like, okay, yeah, that's nice. Where's my daughter? I'm like, holy crap, that's like all my Italian aunts. And then she swaps place with Captain Marvel, and she's like, want to tell me why Captain Marvel is running up and down in my house? Like showing stuff like that, showing the heart, showing some of that chemistry, showing some of that endearingness is something that they really last. Because I'll tell you what, for the most part, again, they have the one pretty decent trailer. For the most part, Rob, the marketing for this movie has felt very sterile. Like very sterile.
That's a good way to put it.
Showing no personality, forget narrative. Like they just haven't done a good job. And again, this brings us back full circle to considering that, and considering that you don't have your actors out there. The fact that you're holding off the review embargo until the day before, to me, is a big, big warning sign. Now, one of our viewers is saying, Lucci, I think his name is, said, John, I'm not liking this take from you. I'm sorry, but this is I am 100% consistent on this. I always say when a movie does not release its review embargo until the day before the movie comes out, 100% of the time I tell you that to me is a giant red flag. And guess what? While there are a few exceptions, 9 out of 10 times we're right. 9 out of 10 times when a movie doesn't release its review embargo till like the day before the movie comes out, and sometimes the day of the movie comes out, the movies end up being trash. So you may not like my take on this, but that is exactly how I feel about this for every single movie that has done this. So I don't know, Rob. Look, you and I, Rob, have both seen a lot of movies that had terrible trailers that we ended up liking the movie. What do you think the Marvels needs to do? I'm thinking it's a heavy infusion of that charm, of that endearingness, of that personality. What do you think this movie needs to accomplish to win over the audience when we go out to watch it eventually?
Well, on one hand, it does have to have that heart. It has to have that Miss Marvel heart. And I also think it needs to tie into the Marvel Cinematic Universe in some meaningful way. It has to show why these three characters were put together, that the story that it tells makes their teaming up organic, and ultimately that the story, the adversary they're fighting, has to have some kind of larger ramifications and to what else is going on, and ultimately tell a satisfying story. And what I'm seeing now, they haven't, other than the fact that there's another villain that these three characters have to fight. Maybe that's all we need to know, but I already know that. That's what a comic book movie is. And they haven't given me, other than, I guess, the three of them changing their powers, some Freaky Friday thing is supposed to be a draw, but it's not that much of a draw for me. It's more annoying than anything else. I just, look, maybe it'll surprise us all, but like you said, John, the track record of movies letting go of their embargo the day before they open is not good. And this is not. John, this is also following a $1 billion grossing movie. And that
with Captain Marvel, like, right? Yeah.
This could be the Highlander 2 of the Captain Marvel franchise.
Well, look, I will say this, though. I will say this. With me saying that, the marketing's felt very sterile, stuff like that. There's not been a lot there to capture my imagination, my attention. I will say this. I haven't seen much in the trailers that have turned me off. Like, I'm not seeing a lot that's getting me invested and getting me excited. But like, I also haven't seen anything in the trailers that made me go, oh, are they going to do that? Like, I haven't seen anything yet that has actively turned me off. Like the stuff with, what's the name of the damn cat again? I've loved everything with the cat.
The Flurkin.
The Flurkin. Thank you. I've liked the Flurkin stuff. I love Kamala's family stuff. I don't have anything else to say that I've liked about it, but I don't have anything yet to say this thing I'm seeing in the marketing really worries me. I don't know. Have you seen anything in the marketing so far that is, besides a lack of something good, have you seen anything that has actively kind of turned you off yet?
No. And that's the thing. I haven't seen anything that will turn me off, but I just haven't seen a lot of things that turn me on.
Yeah. And hence why I call it sterile so far. So hopefully the movie can surprise us. I just don't have a lot of faith that it will. Okay, guys.
I want it to be good.
Yeah, no, I think, listen, all of us are going to go into it hoping that, look, there's something fundamentally wrong with you as a moron if you go into a movie hoping it's bad. It's like, what the fuck? So obviously we're going in hoping it'll be good. I like the first movie. I love WandaVision where we first got Photon. I love Ms. Marvel. We're coming off Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Well, no, we're coming off of Secret Invasion. But from the movie screen, we're coming off of Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which I'd like to see that momentum continue, but who knows? All right, guys, listen. We're now going to go over and start taking some questions you guys threw in on the super chats. Now, I'll let you know I have turned them off early because I don't have Jonathan here to help me with stuff. So I'm trying to limit how much technical stuff I need to do. So we're going to take a few of the questions that you guys have sent in on super chats. But before we get to that, we're going to take a quick moment here and thank the main sponsor of the John Campea Show YouTube channel, our friends, my mobile service provider, and they should be yours, Mint Mobile. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Mint Mobile. Signing your life away to a big wireless provider is kind of like being trapped on a roller coaster from hell. Sure, it looks like fun at first. They probably even threw in a free phone, but now you can't get off. Month after month of insane bills and unexpected thrills, like overages and surprise fees. If that sounds like your current big wireless plan, it's time to get off the ride with Mint Mobile. For a limited time, wireless plans from Mint Mobile are just $15 a month. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for just $15 a month. You guys know before I came to Mint Mobile, I was paying triple what I am paying now on the standard big wireless plan, and I will never go back. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. To get your new unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped right to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that all down, let's go over and take some questions from you guys. Again, I'm running everything technically myself today, so you're not going to see your questions on the screen, but we're going to get through these as quickly as we can. All right. First up, we got Frankie C. This is one that we didn't get around to answer yesterday. Rob, you might be able to answer this one better than me. They cut 30 minutes from the Eras Tour movie. That's the Taylor Swift concert movie. Was it part of the AMC distribution deal, possibly? And would you be surprised to see an extended version? Well, Rob, my guess would be, because I heard it's like, doesn't it clock in at, you were there, you saw it, doesn't it clock in at around 2.5 hours?
Yeah.
That would be my guess. If the concert itself was actually like 3 hours long, I could imagine AMC saying, hey, Taylor, all due respect, but we're going to need you to give us a cut that's around 2.5 hours. That would be my guess. I don't think it's anything they wanted to leave out. Rob, why do you think they gave one that was a little bit shorter? And do you think they'll release it again at Christmas and call it the extended edition. I don't know. What do you think they're going to do?
I think you're absolutely right. A 3-hour concert movie. I mean, who's going to sit for that? Of course, they're dancing the aisles, so maybe they would. But I think they also, this was a deal that Taylor Swift obviously and her people made directly with the studio. They want running time. They want a 3-hour Taylor Swift movie might be great, but you're going directly to studios and you're going to want that. I mean, you're going directly to movie theaters, John. You're going to want as many shows during the day as you can, especially because it's playing from Thursday through Sunday. So you're missing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday shows. So a 2-hour movie's, a 2.5-hour movie's pushing it. I guarantee you, when they release this elsewhere, they're going to have a longer version of this for home. They'll release it on physical media with extra tracks and bonus features or whatever. But they did what they could because this was designed, the deal they made directly with AMC. They wanted to get the biggest bang for their buck. And so I wouldn't see it as cutting out something. The movie itself is different than actually being at the concert. So I think Taylor Swift picked what her favorite and best performances were, and that's what we got.
All right, let's move on to the next thing here. Amin writes, one of two. Finally started watching Gen V, and turns out I'm actually a graduate of Godolphin University. They filmed it at the U of T Mississauga. Oh yeah, that's right. I think I did hear about that. This U of T, for those of you who don't know, is University of Toronto. Mississauga, which is where I went to. Is there a show or film that used your university college as the filming location? This was first for me, was surreal seeing my campus on screen. I don't really know. I mean, I gotta believe like McMaster University in Hamilton is like a gorgeous, broad sweeping grounds. And they've shot a lot of stuff in Hamilton. Things like the CW Titans show was shot in Hamilton. Like actually a whole lot of shit is shot in my hometown. So I got to imagine they've used that one, but it's always fun when you get to see something on screen that is from your neck of the woods, whether it's the school or like the lakeshore or something like that. That's always a cool thing to see. All right. Danito writes, seeing that you're the legend Jason Kelce. Yep, Danito knows it. I am football legend Jason Kelce, also one of my favorite podcasters right now. That's who I'm dressed as. Seeing that you are the legend Jason Kelce, do you have any opinion on the tush push? Yes, I do. Shouldn't be banned in my opinion, as it doesn't really benefit many offenses. So for those of you who don't know, I'll try to make this quick because I know a lot of you tune out when we talk sports, but the Philadelphia Eagles, behind the monster man, Jason Kelce, have this play called the tush push, or the brotherly shove is what they call it in Philadelphia, where the center, Jason Kelce, snaps the ball to the quarterback, Jalen Hurts, and then the entire line and Hurts push forward, and like the running back and tackles get behind Hurts and they push him as well, and they push the ball forward, basically getting an automatic 1, 2, 2.5 yards every single time they do it. They're so good at it that a bunch of fans of other teams are crying, boo-hoo, you're scoring on us, boo-hoo. There is nothing wrong with the tush push. And by the way, the Eagles aren't even my team, so I don't care. But there is nothing wrong with the brotherly shove. There is nothing wrong with the tush push. It's totally legal. If you don't like it and your team doesn't like it, stop them. Last time I checked, your team's allowed to have just as many guys on the field as their team. And if their team is just physically tougher and stronger than you, too bad. So stop them. If you don't like it, stop them. I see no problem with the play. I think it should continue. That's just me. All right. Coolmade 2000 writes, man, back in May, when you said we won't feel the effects of the strikes until a few months from then, here we are now. It's like witnessing a prophecy playing out. Yeah, I mean, Rob, we talk about that all the time, right? That when major things like this, particularly strikes, we say like, okay, the actor's going on strike. All right, well, you're not going to see them on late night shows right now, but you're not going to really feel the effects for a few months. In the case of executive changeover in studios, it's a few years. But yeah, I mean, and we're seeing it now, all these movies getting delayed and pushed. They can't get the actors out promoting it. Now, I've heard that they're going to go back to the negotiating table this week, and hopefully that's true. Maybe SAG will stop trying to sabotage the whole damn thing. But I don't know. Anyway, does that surprise you that we're now over 100 days after the actor strike? Is that now is when we're really starting to feel the effects?
No, and also we're feeling the effects because movies that were supposed to come out, that we thought were coming out, have also been pushed.
Yeah.
So it's things that weren't getting made, and now it's things that were made that have been pushed into 2024, like Dune 2.
Yeah.
I mean, I should be on a Dune high right now with Dune about to come out in a couple weeks. Nope. Got to wait till March. So yeah, I mean, this is it. It's really unfortunate after the pandemic. I thought Hollywood was kind of rolling in terms of the business coming back and movie theaters doing well. And nope.
Yeah, this is an industry that just constantly finds a way to shoot itself in the ass, man. Every time.
Yeah.
All right. Next up here, we've got Marie Seifring, who writes, to get a better handle on the MCU going forward, how many movie projects and Disney Plus TV shows would you plan to put out each year? Thanks. It's a good question, Marie. Rob, I said the other day, I honestly think the magic spot window is 3, maybe 4. 2 movies, 1 Disney Plus show, 2 Disney Plus shows, 2 movies, like 3 or 4 a year. I think that's in combination of the MCU shows on Disney Plus and the theatrical releases. I personally think, because when you look back at when the MCU was firing truly on all cylinders, that's really kind of where they were at as far as the amount of product they were putting out. Where would you think that magic number is?
I think you're probably right. I mean, I could see maybe 3 movies and 2 shows.
Oh, so you'd say 5 projects a year.
5 projects a year, but I mean, they would be, they would have been an ongoing thing, but I would like to see them, tightly woven. I feel that everything in the Marvel Cinematic Universe now is kind of disconnected from everything else, where it used to all build on something. I mean, you went from Winter Soldier to Civil War to Infinity War and Endgame, and it felt like you were watching a much bigger narrative unfolding, and yet each project was satisfying in its own right. And that's why I like the MCU so much. But since Phase 4, that hasn't been the case. You and I both love Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
Where is he? What's he been doing?
Maybe he pops up in the Marvels. Maybe he pops. I mean, the rings, all that kind of, I will say, like, whenever people bring up the fact that the MCU feels more disconnected now than ever, I feel like I'm obligated to say this. I agree. And I would even be okay with that if the movies and shows were still consistently good. If the movies and shows were still consistently good, I would feel more patient about it connecting. But the fact that the shows and movies aren't consistently good, it's really highlighting the fact that it's all so disconnected right now. All right. Next 100%. Up, we got Fanjecture, who writes, Gimli, son of Kelsey. Yeah, this feels... Well, hey, listen, in all honesty, Jason Kelsey does look like a bit like a dwarf from The Lord of the Rings. So, I'll be fair to myself in that. All right. Seconds from Disaster writes, what's up, eyebrows? I've been seeing a report Hulu is working on Prey 2, No Man's Land set in World War II. Any validity to this, and how stoked are you for it? I honestly have no idea if there's any validity to the premise and setting, like World War II and all that kind of stuff. What I do know is that the main actress, and I forget her name right now, from Prey, has hinted and suggested that they're looking at doing a Prey 2. Now, Rob, I can't remember what year Prey was supposed to take place in, but I don't think it was around the World War II era. So if they do Prey 2 and they use the same actress, then I don't think the World War II rumor could be real. Again, so I don't know about the World War II rumor. But yes, the actress herself has said they're looking at maybe doing a Prey 2. And I hope they do, Rob, because I really like the first one.
And Amber Midthunder is the actress.
Amber Midthunder. And how good was she in that?
Great. And I love her name.
Yes.
Amber Midthunder. But, I could see a Predator coming back, hearing about her and that honorable or something and wants to team up against other Predators with her. Maybe that's some kind of a thing.
Didn't they do that in Alien versus Predator? Where like a Predator and the human girl teamed up to take out the aliens?
They kind of did.
Well, go back and do it again. All right.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I haven't heard anything, but I hope they make a sequel to Prey.
Me too.
Loved it.
All right, next up. We've got Raymond Verrata who writes, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 will go the way of Aragon, The Golden Compass, The Mummy, and History of the World Part 1 for decades. It was just Part 1. I don't believe that. Now, what Raymond is saying here, because Aragon was meant to be a trilogy, they made one and then they killed it. The Golden Compass was supposed to be the first film of a franchise, made one and they killed it. Listen, this movie made in the I think it was like $560 million, which maybe that was underperforming, but it's still $560 million that movie made, and it's Tom Cruise. They are 100%, Raymond, have no doubt about it. Part 2, whatever the title is going to be, 100% is going to come. All right. Walter White Walker writes, I didn't never mind. We're gonna skip over that because that's stupid. Gnashing of Teeth writes, I surmise that if Larson and cast were out promoting this movie, it may do worse. This franchise and Disney have hit DEFCON 5 levels of panic. It's no longer fan disdain anger. It's now complete apathy. I think you're 100% wrong about that. I think you're actually really dead wrong about that. And that's a very, very narrow way of looking at it. Look, every project that Disney does, any project that almost any studio does, they put everything they've got into it and they want it to succeed. You know why? Because they're greedy. The better you make your projects, the more successful it is, the more money everybody makes. And yeah, if you put out a bad movie, maybe your bad movie can still make $100 million in profit. But if you made it really good, it can make $300 million in profit. Like greed, as, what was Michael Douglas's first name? Gordon.
Gordon Gekko.
As Gordon Gekko immortally said, greed is good. Greed works. In the entertainment industry, many times, greed will work for us as fans because greed will be a high motivating factor to the studios to try to make something as good as it can be, and be as successful as it can be. So I think this mindset that Disney just has apathy about it. Hey, listen, no one's complaining more about the current state of the MCU than I am, but that's what you're proposing is ridiculous. That's just not true at all. They're just failing. I mean, they're just failing a lot in areas with it. And I guarantee you, while there is a segment of knuckle draggers who have this irrational hate on for Brie Larson, because she once suggested that maybe other journalists of some different ethnicity should have a place at the table too. I guarantee you that if her and the other cast were out there promoting this film, it wouldn't have a $200 million opening. But right now, Rob, they're saying about a $75 to $80 million opening. I think it would be a $95 to $100 million opening if the cast could actually be out there promoting this thing. The MCU has problems, Rob. Kevin Feige not caring about the MCU is not one of them. I don't know. How would you respond to that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I look, everybody cares and they want what they're doing to be great. And I don't think, apathy amongst audiences is one thing. And look, no one sets out to make a $150 million franchise picture and not want it to be good. They just don't. So I think that audiences all want the same thing, John. They want to be entertained. And the thing about the Marvel Cinematic Universe that we tend to forget is it's given us, in terms of franchises, it's one of it, if not the biggest in history. It did a great job for 15 years. So our expectations for Marvel are so incredibly high, at least for me. I expect everything to be an A to A plus movie. When I see a B plus, I'm like, okay. But our expectations for Marvel are insanely high. So I think we have to temper our expectations because as a James Bond fan, you usually get movies that are pretty good. There's very few Bond movies that are great, but I love James Bond. Marvel, most of their movies have been great. So I think they will be great again.
What you're saying about the fact that the bar for them has been so high, I think the bar for them has been high also in terms of success. Like, for example, like if if the Marvels comes out and let's say it does hit that $80 million opening weekend projection that they're calling, right? What I would like to say to most people is, okay, by Marvel standards, that's not very good, right? Because I mean, the Eternals, I think, opened to 71 million. Black Widow opened to 80. But, you know, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Thor Ragnarok, Guardians 3, all these movies had well north of $100 million openings. But I think people forget that if you don't compare it to just Marvel films, if this movie opens to $80 million, that is a bigger opening weekend than the last 7 DC movies opened with. I want you to think about that for a second. If the Marvels flops with an $80 million opening, that is more than any DC film, any of the last 7 DC films over the last 5 years open with. And it would still be one of the biggest opening weekends of the year. But that is kind of the double-edged sword of past success, right, Rob? Because you're not just being measured against what other people are doing right now, you're being measured against your own past success, and that can come back to bite you in the ass a little bit. So anyway, guys, with that down, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast. Thank you so much for being here and making this show part of your day. Big apologies to Jason Kelsey for butchering his look the way that I have. A big special thank you to all you guys who sent in the super chats. Number 1, because you gave us interesting things to talk about. But number 2, you supported our channel while we did it. And again, my apologies that I did close the super chat so early. It's just that, you know, I'm trying to do everything by myself here today. So there's that. Of course, I want to thank writer, director, producer, Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, where can people find you online?
Well, you can find me on YouTube at my channel, The Burnett Work. You can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM. Find me on Instagram at RMBurnett.
And guys, thank you again so much for being here, making the show part of your day. Don't forget, a little bit later this afternoon, guys, at 3:30 p.m. Los Angeles time, we'll be doing an open mic. So if you guys have comments, questions, thoughts, opinions, you just want to come hang out and talk about movies and TV and all that good stuff, come on back and join us at 3:30 p.m. Los Angeles time, and we will see you then. So until next time, my friends, my name's John Campea. Bye-bye.